Hey everybody, it's Wraith. I'm actually at work right now, but I just have a few minutes, so I wanted to go ahead and record a quick video about why I love video games. Um, I know there are a lot of social stigmas against video games, such as it engenders violence in kids, or it takes away from social skills and things like that. I don't really want to get into my opinion on those things. I don't really feel like my opinion would make that much of a difference for people who have those beliefs or anything like that. And that's not really what this video is about anyways. I just wanted to talk about why I like video games, why I record them, why I've been playing them for as long as I have, and things of that nature. I'm actually in kind of what I can call my office at my work, just because I'm one of the only people who come back here. Um, that being said, it's kind of unkept back here because of that, so I'm going to try and keep it tight on my face just so you don't see the disgusting webs everywhere and stuff like that. Anyways, not important. Moving on. So, I think I mentioned a little bit in my first video, and for those of you who know me, I wanted to be an author when I was younger, and I loved reading and movies and things of that nature. I mean, I still do, and I think that kind of stems from a real desire of escapism. Because, again, for those of you who know me, I've had issues with mental health in the past, and the easiest method of getting away from that was escaping from it, whether it be escaping into a book or escaping into a movie, but especially escaping into video games where it requires that interactivity of, okay, you are now this character, and you're now going to live their life. So initially, I think it sort of stemmed from that whole concept of I want to escape reality into a world that I control for a little while. But since then, it's kind of stemmed out further than that. And maybe even it included more than that beforehand, I'm not quite sure, but I know nowadays there's a lot more to it. Like, there's still that aspect, but there's also just sort of the concept of I can live out dreams that I can never do in person. I mean, I'm a little bit of a bigger guy, so there's a lot of physical things I can't do that I can do in video games. Obviously, the laws of physics don't apply quite the same way in a lot of video games, so there's always that aspect of, hey, I can fly or I can run endlessly. Not that running endlessly is really appealing, but like flying and things like that is amazing. And that's just one of the many things you can do in video games. And I kind of, again, mentioned in the first video about how part of the reason I was doing YouTube is because my desires, my passions, and everything was constantly changing. And video games are a really good avenue for living a life aside from what you're used to living for a little while. Like, let's say you really enjoy playing Skyrim, for instance. But you're going to get bored of it eventually. I don't care how good the game is, eventually you're going to get bored of it, and you're going to want to move on to something else. And with video games, that's always an option, and even for free. I am actually thinking of starting a series in the future called Free-to-Play Frenzy, which is just going to be me recording Let's Plays of free-to-play games on like Armor Games, Congregate, things like that. And I think that's just an amazing thing that people are making these amazing games for free that can allow you to move on. Even if you don't have money to spend on the newest, hottest AAA title, you can still play whatever you want to play for free. But even if you did spend a little money, you get obviously the better titles, or not necessarily obviously the better titles. A lot of really good titles are free also. But it's just, again, sort of that concept of I can do what I want, and when I get bored of it, put in another disc, play something else. So right now I've mainly been doing Just Cause 3 and Dishonored, and part of that, the reason I've been jumping back and forth between the two, is not just because I don't want to be showing just the one thing to you people who are watching, but I also wanted to go ahead and change it up for myself. Because, like, I was playing Just Cause, and it was starting to get a little bit old, so I moved over to Dishonored, and now I'm getting a good balance moving back and forth. But also part of the reason I want to do this, wow, that's my hand. Oh, right, because I'm recording from the front. But another reason I want to do this free-to-play Frenzy is just to add another level of variation to it, so I'm not just doing these two games over and over. So I just want to keep things changed in that sense. And with video games, I think, again, sort of talking about the living out your dreams type thing, For years, I've always wanted to learn parkour, and I wanted to learn capoeira and things like that. And again, in my current physical shape, I can't do that. Um, so video games, tabletop games, things like that allow me to experience to a small extent what that's like. Like, I'm a big fan of the game Dying Light, which is very parkour heavy, and it just lets you do things that you might not be able to do otherwise. I had a customer at my other job come in yesterday and ask, what is the obsession with zombie games? And I think in general, the answer I gave her can sort of apply to video games in general. Because what I said is people enjoy like violence to a certain amount. We're humans, we enjoy a certain degree of violence. And a lot of people are big fans of Call of Duty, Battlefield, things like that. And a lot of people say, well, you're killing people and that's wrong. Well, play a zombie game. You're not killing people, you're killing undead things. So I think for some people, it's just a matter of having something that you don't feel any real remorse for having killed. And video games in general can sort of apply to the same thing. There are certain things that you can do in video games that you morally would not do in real life, and sort of experience what comes from that. And again, I guess this sort of ties back into the escapism concept of if you want to live a life that isn't yours or live by ideals that you don't actually hold. It's very easy to create a new persona in a video game that you would never have in person. And some people would say, oh, well, that can be dissociative. You can sort of create a new personality in real life. But I don't think it has to be like that. I mean, I'm sure for some people who have a harder time discerning real from unreal, that could be a problem. But with video games, I think it's healthy to a certain extent, explore via this medium. I mean, I don't think that people should actually practice what they do in video games in real life, obviously. But I think a lot of people are able to separate the video game from the real. So I think, in a way, it's healthy to sort of explore what's that like, to just sort of get it out of the system. I don't know, I've always kind of been fond, and this is why I really like very immersive games. I've never been able to get into the Witcher series, because from the beginning, the Witcher series told you who you were, what your backstory was, what your future was going to be. And I've always been more fond of the Elder Scrolls style, where it's like, so this is where you're starting. You don't know who you were, you don't know what you're going to be, you only know what this moment is. And I kind of like that immersive aspect of, now I'm writing my story. I determine who I was, I determine what I'm going to be moving forward, and I determine how I'm going to get to that point. And I've always been fond of just that whole creative aspect of certain RPG style games, of just being able to write who I am, who my character is, and who I'm going to be. I don't know, I just feel like it's much more immersive, it's much easier to sort of get into character in that sense. And overall, I think there are certain aspects, like there are certain games that do really well of creating relationships with characters. I mean, they're obviously inanimate, like pieces of coding, but some stories make you really endeared to the characters. And I feel like obviously it's important to have friendships, it's important to have real life people you can talk to, hang out with, things of that nature. But it's also kind of cool just having in a game where you can be like, I know that person, he's my friend, and we can do this inside a game. And just sort of those relationships I feel like are a very beneficial thing of video games also. Now obviously, sort of going back to the whole separating video game from reality, I do feel like some people comment that, oh, it makes you have less social skills, be less social in general. I don't feel like that's necessarily true, because like with me, yes, I love video games, but I still crave that real life human interaction, even to the point of I want to play games, but only if I can play with someone at a particular point in time. So I feel like there's still that natural balance of, cool, it's nice to have these relationships in-game, but I also want to have these real-life relationships, or, hey, come experience this game with me. And even in sort of this back and forth right now, I mean, obviously, it's more of a monologue from my point of view at the moment, but I'm getting to share my experiences of video games with someone in hopes that they'll be able to say, hey, I get that, I feel that too, or this is what I think of games. Just sort of the door that's opened via video games for a back and forth communication with real life people, and sort of the avenue of relationship that opens in real life. So this is just a couple of reasons why I love video games, why I've pretty much always loved video games, why I'm going to continue to love video games, and why I recorded on my channel, why I'm even doing this video, just for the communication with you guys of this is what I feel about video games, this is why I love video games. And I would really encourage comments of if you people agree with me, if you don't, what do you think, what do you think differently than I do, what do you think the same. I would really like to see just comments of why you people like or even dislike video games. I mean, it's open forum. People are going to have different opinions. People are not going to like video games. I just want to sort of open the comments below for you people to put your opinions out there. Because again, sort of a relational experience of you people interacting with each other, you people interacting with me. Why do you like video games? Why do you not like video games? Well, which video games do you like? Why do you like them? Which characters in the games do you like? How did you relate to those characters? What characters have you created in your own mind based on video games and things of that nature? So, as always, I just want to go ahead and thank everyone for taking the time to watch this video. If you liked it, feel free to hit the like button. If you want to be kept up to date with when I post new content, please hit the subscribe button. If you know other people who would appreciate this content, feel free to share it. It always helps the community grow. And again, I want that to be what this is. I want this to be a community where people are talking to each other, talking to me talking to them, things of that nature, where we're actually a relationship with each other. I don't want this to just be me talking at a screen. There are people on the other side of the screen watching this, and I'd really like this channel to become a community with which we can have conversations. I think even in my channel art, I refer to it as conversations, not as vlogs or opinions or things like that. I mean, I think the playlist is called Opinions, but I want this to be a conversation. I want us to have an actual relationship where it's not just me talking one-sided. So feel free to let me know what you think in the comments below. Yeah, and I hope to see you next time.